Hello, everybody. Welcome to the training, learning, and development community. Thanks for joining us this morning. Happy Monday to you. I hope you guys are doing well out there. We have got a bunch of people in already. My favorite thing to do is just read people's names off. We've got Jane is in, Sandy, Kim, Teresa, Joe Cook, yay, Mohammed, Joe Suarez, Shelly, Avi, Josh, Kitsal, Jeff, Jason, Laura, Magda. Oh, the list is just growing. I'm going to have to stop there because it's going to just take too much time. So we're here this morning to talk about DevLearn DDX, what was it called? The digital, what was it? Crystal, can you help me out here?
The DevLearn Digital Experience. That's brought right, to you by the Learning Guild.
Thank you. Thanks, Crystal. And so we've got some guests this morning. I don't know if Cara North needs an introduction. Probably not on TLDC. Needs no introduction whatsoever. But I would like to introduce my good friend and I don't know, what would we say? We used to work together at the e-learning guild when it was the e-learning guild.
E-learning guild, yes. I still say the e-learning guild occasionally.
Yeah. And pretty much Crystal's responsible for when the website really kind of, the conference websites in particular really sort of, they kind of kicked it up a notch when Crystal came on board, and she was sort of, we just worked closely together all the time and just innovated the heck out of that place and had a lot of fun doing it. So I feel honored to have Crystal on. She committed to doing this. And actually the reason why Crystal is on is because she snuck me into one of Cara's sessions during DDX. And so I got to check that out a little bit. Hopefully you don't get in trouble for that one, Crystal. But, and so that's why she's here. But I'm very excited to talk about this. And how's this going to work, Carrie? We're just going to talk to a few different folks. Jonathan Hill has been popping in and out. I'm going to go ahead and invite him back on. We're going to be talking about, different people's sessions. And then also I'd like to get some, behind the scenes information from Crystal too. And then I think that, we've got a few people in chat that were also at the event. So if we have time, we'd love to just rotate people in and out if that's okay with you guys. So hopefully it is. So let's jump into it. What do you guys say? All right. So let me, while I'm inviting Jonathan in, Cara, maybe you can just start and talk about what your experience was at DDX.
Sure. So this was my second DevLearn. So I went to DevLearn for the first time last year in 2019, and it was amazing. I enjoyed every moment of it. I finally got to meet a lot of fantastic people in person that I'd been waiting to meet. I got a selfie with Sophia the robot, and she didn't kill me, which was cool. And it was awesome. And, for me, kind of my big bucket list that I've had on my list for a while was presenting at DevLearn. So being able to present last year was really an honor, and I'll probably hold that experience near and dear to my heart for the rest of my life. Like, it really was that important to me. So this year I was so sad that it ended up being online, but very grateful to the guild and great folks like Crystal to pivot it, because I feel like it is such an important event for learning and development professionals. I mean, for me, that is where the cream of the crop go. I mean, they go to DevLearn. Like, that is where everybody kind of gathers. So I was really excited to see a lot of great sessions this year. Jay Hill had an amazing session, but again, I'm extremely biased. I do think Bryan Smith brought the house down and had the best session, in my opinion, of DevLearn. So I really hope that we can get him in the boxes and talk about it, because for me, it was so good. After he was done, I took a video of myself giving him a standing ovation and sent it to him. I did. No, he'll tell you, because I had that experience last year at DevLearn. It was so special to me. I wanted him to have the same experience, because he just killed it. So
he did.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. Bryan, I'm definitely going to find your email address and ask you to be a guest on TLDC, I guess. All right. So if it's okay with you guys, what I'd like to do is we have a bunch of questions in Q&A, some absolutely fantastic ones in there, actually. And maybe we could just kind of do a circle where I just ask you some of these questions, if that's cool. And and just go from there. So like, Cara, let's start with you. Well, like, what were your highlights from the event?
I'll go with 3. So one is finally seeing Mr. J. Hill here present, right? Because I followed his work for so long and I feel like he's such an inspiration. So for him to have a session and present of him doing what he does best was really great to see. So that was a highlight. Second is I really enjoyed, believe it or not, the speed networking and the AfterBuzz sessions this year. Like typically if I was there in person, I probably would avoid them because that's when I want to go hang out, go have a drink, whatever. But the fact that they were just so great this year, I really enjoyed that. And I really enjoyed the networking piece even more, I think, this year. And the third was I loved this form of Demo Fest. So you were able to see everybody's submission this year. Whereas if you are a participant in Demo Fest, you're standing there, you don't get to see anything. And then unfortunately you see the best of afterwards. So I really enjoyed looking at that. And for me, the best thing that I saw in Demo Fest was Dish Network had a really great game called Wolf of Wall Street, and it was just so inspiring. And I immediately after I saw it sent J-Rock a message of like, you have to see this somehow, like this is incredible. So those were kind of the big 3, I think, takeaways for me.
Nice. So just real quick, what was the speed networking?
So basically it was Bianca or DK or Brits, basically just putting people in breakout rooms, just randomly assigned 5 minutes, but you actually got to talk to people because it's different when you're just chatting with people. Because again, chat can be either funny or really serious, but like actually seeing and talking to people was really nice. And then they had different themes depending on the day. So one was like, how are you holding up working from home? What are some of the big things that you've learned this year? That kind of stuff. So just having a theme with it was really nice.
Was it in a Zoom environment? Is that what it was?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's how you're able to talk to each other. Nice. And then the AfterBuzz sessions, is that what like the thing that you were doing that I popped in?
Yep. Right. So I did one on accessibility and inclusion, but there were a ton of great topics this year. And I also liked hopping. So I would hop around from session to session in the evening, just, poking in, poking out a little bit. So I feel like, especially in this format, it was okay to be a lurker. Like it was okay to kind of bounce around. And it was also kind of, I think, expected. So like, Jonathan Hill, Joe Suarez, like we were all just like, we had a little side chat going like, which session are you going to? Hey, it's really hot in this session. You all need to come over here. Hey, I'm not feeling this. Let's go over. So we kind of were trying to have those hallway conversations that you would have like at an actual conference, but it was really nice to have that flexibility to bounce and not be that rude person stumbling over a backpack trying to sneak out of the session, so.
Very interesting. I did put a poll question in asking if like who in our audience did go to the event. So if you feel like, filling that out, it looks like the majority of the folks that are answering right now did not go. So I'll probably tune our questions so that they're a little bit more like towards, who knows, like what is going to happen next year, but like future events, like, like I'm going to move on to like Crystal right now, because I also want to talk about another event that the Guild is going to be producing soon, and she's going to go into that. But how about your highlights, Crystal?
My highlights was the fact that we held an event. So, I mean, I know a lot of everybody thinks of us as, the Learning Guild, and we put out this really great content, but we're also really an event producer company. We produce events. So came March, we were like, oh my God, we canceled Learning Solutions 3 weeks prior. And, we just didn't know what was happening with this world, and it just keeps going. So we were just so happy we were able to provide our audience and all our members a method to get together, because when it really started kicking off, what I loved was just seeing people take pictures from their memories. Like, here's me at DevLearn, here's me meeting new friends, and them posting those pictures like warmed my heart.
Yeah.
It was just really nice to see the community get together, because this is what, the Learning Guild is about, is trying to bring everybody together and find a way to get everyone together. And I just love the fact that there was a chat there, and, and people can just get together and still have sessions. And it wasn't just sessions, because I think anybody can string sessions together. We really try to innovate on the programming team with Mark Britz, Bianca Woods, David Kelly, we all just worked really hard together to try to think of ways that we can get people connecting and how we can pivot programming elements into a digital experience. So, like Cara says, one of the most surprising things that we found was that everybody really loved the speed networking. We had a guy from Russia who said, hey, the only reason I signed up for DevLearn was because I didn't have to fly and I could finally talk to people. And the speed networking was like worth the entire price of admission for him, So, and we had the after buzz sessions, which was really, really great because we could talk and we could learn things and have questions. And well, you guys jumped around. I didn't jump around. I stayed there the whole time in one solitary buzz as the host of these sessions. So it was nice to see. It was nice to see everyone. It was nice to, I hosted Jeff Bat session, the Dish Network guys. They did a presentation on their Wolf of Wall Street. I hosted those guys. I talked to them, and it's kind of just like nice. Yeah, we're not in the hallways of Las Vegas. There's not crazy carpeting everywhere, and just everything's go, go, go. But it was just really, really nice seeing everyone, and I was just really happy to see the community together.
That's awesome, Crystal. It's like I can't help. I have all these operations questions, which are totally inappropriate for this podcast, but I'll probably ask you on the side. So,
yeah.
How about you, Jonathan? Like, what were your highlights?
Well, I have no basis of comparison. I've never been to a DevLearn before. I booked flights and a hotel way back last year for Vegas. We're going to stay at the Flamingo. I was going to see RuPaul's Drag Race. I was going to do loads of things. So I was a little bit like Cara. I was like, oh, well, how's this going to work? Now it's online. And I think it worked very well. And many of the highlights that Cara already highlighted, I share. I thought all the featured sessions were very well curated. And, if you can imagine, like the big tent events that they had no competition, you come and see the main event. They're all very well curated, and I thought Tracy Parrish's session was really good, as with Carl Capps and Julie Dirkson's. Asked Julie if she could autograph my copy of her book in the chat, but it didn't quite work online, unfortunately. And then the smaller sessions as well. My session was the bring your own device session, which I had to kind of put into a pre-recorded format. And I thought the pre-recorded sessions were really well curated as well, because despite the fact you can go back to them at any time and continue to watch them for 6 months, there was an element of sort of watch parties going on. So I tried to drum up a bit of trade to get people to come in, like a carnival barker, or in the chat. I was saying, "Come on, my session's going live in half an hour. Come on in." I did like a bit of a watch party and chatting to people in the comments at the time, and they were very well curated as well, despite the fact that you could watch them at any time. So if you had a particular interest in a particular direction, you weren't kind of feeling like you were sitting in the wrong room, like Cara said, and the ability to kind of dip in and kind of see if it's for you, and then dip out again without kind of like making a load of noise and slamming a door in the back and interrupting the speaker. It did lend a different dynamic to the sessions, and I think the most successful session, the live sessions, were the ones where the presenters made good use of the chat. And I'm so grateful my session was pre-recorded, because I don't know if I could have spun that many plates to do the presentation and to engage in the chat, particularly the way Bryan did it and Cara and James did it. And to keep the session going and to keep it on track, that was, a thing to watch. And clearly those sessions, if you're in the chat and getting instant answers while the presentation is going on, you're going to be just that little bit more engaged with it. And I think if future events like this do have to remain online for whatever reason, that's a skill I certainly would like to try and master. And I think anyone who's thinking about doing this kind of thing again in the future and submitting to an online event perhaps needs to consider whether they'd like to do it pre-recorded, if that's available. If they think they can do it live, because there's certainly two very different dynamics there. But the overall effect was a very kind of rich tapestry of delivery methods, content, and not too many occasions where you're kind of playing off one session against another. So credit to the team, it's very well curated in that regard.
That's great, Jonathan. And I guess that, since we have Cara and Crystal on, my next question is, how do you feel how it went like as a replacement for the live event? And also, like somebody had asked in chat, do you think that there's going to be like a significant online sort of element next year as well? Crystal, I don't know if you even have any of that intelligence or no idea.
Yeah, we just keep hoping for a live event.
Yeah. No, because that's where the money is. So, I mean, Cara, what do you think? Like, I know the experience. I mean, I was at DevLearn last year and those things just exhaust me in Las Vegas. But like, as far as this experience versus being live, like, do you feel like it was an adequate replacement?
Well, I'll be transparent here. I don't know if it's because I've started a new role this year or whatever, but I do think it was a little bit more difficult for me to have my whole attention in DevLearn. Whereas if it was a live event, I would be able to hopefully turn off work because it never failed. I would even block my Outlook calendar at work, like, don't disturb me, let me enjoy it, but constant, because we're so accustomed to working online now. They see you're online, they're like, oh, she's open for business. Let's give her something to work on here. But I think that was the thing that really was disappointing for me, is I didn't enjoy it as much because I didn't have that kind of cutoff from my job as I have had in the past. And again, maybe I would have had that, maybe I wouldn't have had that. I mean, it's kind of hard to tell at this point. And then I also made the mistake of doing another conference the same time. So I did the ATD conference the same time as this as well. So do not recommend doing that. I should have known better, and I've told myself not to do that before, but I did it again this year. So not a smart move on my part.
Yeah. So you were basically pretty exhausted after it was all said and done. And Crystal, so with the live events, after everything wraps, you are basically, I mean, everyone kind of just goes into hibernation mode for at least a week or two or a month because we're so tired, especially after DevLearn. What was it like, after you wrapped up with this event? Is everybody like, I'm sure you guys had to take a break, but what was the general feeling?
Oh, I haven't taken a break for 3 weeks now, 4 weeks now, because I have to jump into a different conference, which is happening next week that we'll talk about later. But yeah, I had to jump right into that conference. So I'm doing a lot of the marketing for it, doing a lot of the web and whatnot. So I've been trying to handle 2 conferences, Cara says, which isn't super easy. But, my biggest challenge with not having a live event is that there is no free brownies. As you know, this is where my priorities are.
All right, the free.
I have complained to multiple coworkers. Like, I will text Mary and I say, Mary, where's my chocolates? Because I can't go. I need some refreshments to keep going, and I got to go make my own meals. Come on.
Oh man, now you're making me miss those days. Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah, the free stuff.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Definitely know what you're talking about.
I had to go get my, make my own drink ticket. So, what's great about the live event is that you are there. Your attention is there. Everyone just pays attention to just that sole thing. Whereas at home, you're juggling, 2 things at once. And it's really 2, 3, 5 things at once. And it's really difficult, from that perspective. But what I really like about the online event is that because everything was done through basically Zoom, everything is recorded, everything you can go back to. You didn't necessarily have to be there for the live portion. If you really want to get the content out of it, it's recorded and it's provided online for 6 months. Basically. So I think that's really, really cool, because I know a lot of people juggle having to choose between, the live events, 15 sessions at any given time, right? Right. For the online event, it was 5 sessions, but you had to juggle between sessions and whatnot. And I also acknowledge that, basically 2 weeks we're thinking about, was that the right length? Was that not the right length? Should it be 1 week instead with more blocks, where it took a larger part of your day? Like, what's the right balance if we ever have to do this again? If that mink virus over in Denmark spreads.
Yeah. Hey, Crystal, just real quick, do you guys have like do you have any like takeaways where like say next year if you guys were gonna do another digital event that you'd do something differently?
I think it has to do a lot with the length, because capturing someone's attention for 2 weeks is very difficult. We did chart attendance and whatnot, and it's not steady. It's like it goes down. And so how do you keep that up? Is 1 week better? Let me know what you guys think in the chat. I'd be happy to bring back that information. And should we just take a longer portion of the day? We even try to make the session shorter, so they are all 45 minutes instead of the usual 1 hour session, which unfortunately I know the speakers had to rush through parts of their presentations, but in some aspects or have to rejigger it, so it was 45 minutes. But we really wanted to like give the people at home a 15-minute break before the next session started and kind of move on through the day in a more fast-paced manner, just because we know you can't, with your kids at home, with you trying to work, with all these things going on, having to cook your own meals. We know it's really difficult to capture attention for such a long duration of the day. So we try to make things a little bit more compact that way. So,
Maybe you should do it every week.
Maybe I should do an event every week.
Christy Tucker saying, I like that it was spread out for 2 weeks. It was just hard to step away from work for that long. Joe Cook saying short, snappy sessions were good. They shouldn't have to rush. They should be designed for the time that's available. Totally agree. This is great stuff. Jonathan Hill. I keep on wanting to call you Jay Hill. I got to stop.
That's fine.
That's the J-Rock.
J-Rock.
Next year, I have a feeling that basically anytime you want to present anywhere, you're probably going to be like snatched up real quick. But if you were to do this again next year, is there anything you'd do differently?
That's an interesting question, because my session was originally a bring your own device, which obviously relies on you being in a room. Jack Hutchinson was going to help me co-present it on the basis that we probably need an extra set of hands in the room to kind of make sure that everyone was moving along at the same pace with the activities I'd have planned. So I've almost had to answer that question myself already to change my session into a pre-recorded one. So all the things I did differently for the pre-recorded are in response to the fact it moved online, and I'd almost kind of retrofit it back to being a bring your own device session with an extra set of hands, more kind of resources on the day, and clearly the pace would be very different in terms of the structure of the session, probably the same, but the pace would be different, just to allow people to download the demo, tinker with it, all move along at the same pace, and that would be a case of a lot of kind of classroom management, which I didn't need to even think about in the pre-recorded. I made some allowance for it in the pre-recorded version by having little kind of breaks at points within the presentation, saying, download this pack, do this activity, and then move on. But it was completely optional. You didn't have to do that. And I tried to build the video so if you hadn't done that, it would still make a degree of sense if you hadn't done the activity at the time. And I also made my materials available not just via DevLearn's resource page, but I hosted them myself with a little bit.ly link, so I knew in advance where that material would be. So if anyone did want to just download it there and then while watching the video, they wouldn't have to go out of the session to the resource page or to scratch through the comments to find things. So again, that's something that would probably carry forward into a live session, just having short bit.ly links that you can kind of just trip off the tongue will display very quickly so people can download resources, particularly for a bring your own device session.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I feel like whatever your style or your presentation, how it's going to evolve is going to be something to watch for sure. So Cara, how about you? Like, what would you do differently next year?
Don't present with Joe Suarez. No, I'm kidding. I'm teasing. I don't know. Like, again, I really I really enjoy like encouraging new voices to come and speak and new voices to compete in Demo Fest. So I really would like to just encourage more people to let them know that, your experiences matter and you are good enough to present, and you should have that confidence to do so. So I think that's what I'd like to do more of, is just encourage more folks to get out there and talk and share their expertise.
Love it. I want to ask, I want to get a couple of Devlin's questions answered here, just because these are good ones. If you had to pay for a ticket, do you think that it was worth the investment? So let's start with you, Jonathan. Like, did you have to pay out of pocket? Oh wait, you were speaking, so you.
They're speakers. They're all free.
You guys had to pay for tickets. Why am I even asking that? Hey, chat, if you guys, any of you guys that had to actually pay for a ticket, do you think it was worth the investment? I am really curious about that too. I know that it was something like $400, $300. I don't know, somewhere around there. So if it had to come out of your pocket, and that's a whole different sort of conversation, right? Because I'm used to, of course, like interfacing a lot with speakers, and so that attendee perspective is something that I don't get. I don't get as much. So I would love to hear from you guys if you thought, if you had to pay for a ticket, whether or not it was worth the investment. Kristen, I know you were there. I'm not sure if you were a speaker, but please, like, post in chat. Like Joe was saying, investment. There were so many sessions, such variety. It's hard to say it wasn't worth it. Okay.
Hey, Louise, if I may interject, I actually did pay for a ticket because I was listed as second speaker. And so if you present with somebody and you're the second speaker, you do have to pay. And so both of my sessions, I was listed as the second person because my solo proposal was not accepted, which is fine. So I did have to pay, and I do think that it was worth the money. So
did you pay out of pocket, or did you?
Yep, I paid completely out of pocket. Yep.
Okay, cool. Let's see. Let me ask this other question from DevLearn. Is the networking or content at a conference like DevLearn different than what you can already get or do online for free?
I think, you can get matched with people that you didn't expect to be matched with, or find people who have interests that's harder to find online or LinkedIn. I have, since I've been promoting the other conference, I've been kind of more active in LinkedIn. And then I have a lot of people who just connect with me, and one person did and said, well, if I could do anything to help you, but, there's parts of me where, I don't know where I begin with that, because I think a lot of people think I'm in the e-learning or the L&D industry. And I'm like, well, can you help me do some SQL database pull code writing? Because, we have different functions. So I think it's just cool because it provides a common ground. It's like going to summer camp. You don't know who's going to be there, but you end up with a bestie. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. I think the interface, it is different in a lot of ways. Like Betty is like kind of detailing here, people who are doing the work and want to connect with others that are doing great work. It is one of those things where if you want to be around your tribe and just get into it, like in one sort of focused arena, there it is. It's like DevLearn is there, and it's like a regular conference. So, and trying to figure out how to do it online, or especially for free, is a lot harder. Like TLDC pretty much exists for that reason. So if you guys, if you want to talk to a bunch of instructional designers on a weekly basis, we're here for that. But, it is definitely more focused and more intense at something like, an event the Learning Guild would produce. All right, cool. So hopefully those questions, those answers are good for you, DevLearn. Let me see. What else do we have here? Oh, you know what? Should we try to get Bryan in now and start going through that? Because we're about halfway through. Is that cool? And
kick
Cara,
me out.
Okay.
Yeah, I volunteer as tribute. All right, thanks, everybody.
All right. See you. Thanks, Cara. Let's see. Bryan, where are you? I got to find you if you're still in.
Bryan set a very high bar at the beginning of DevLearn for me.
There he is.
When he started his presentation, I was like, yeah, this is probably going to be what I measure the rest of this conference by.
Yeah, and I am really looking forward to hearing more about it. Cara just hadn't had enough to say, and I definitely am going to extend an invitation to Bryan to maybe like follow up and talk about it. And if there's anybody else at all that went to the event and want to talk a little bit about it, I would love to have you on. Hey, Bryan.
How's it going today?
It's going well.
Jay
Thanks
Hill. Hi, Crystal.
for
Hi.
popping in.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Can you tell us just what's the deal with your session? Let's hear about it.
I appreciate Cara and Jonathan, but their kind comments about made me cry. So I don't want to be on camera crying. So thanks a lot for you two. So yeah, I did a session. I put in the chat earlier. I never would have made my proposal to speak had it not been for Cara's encouragement, and it was a huge benefit for me, huge boost, and I really appreciated it, and all the kind words I've had from some really nice people. But yeah, I did a session discussing ways that we can use scenarios, assessments, and feedback for our learners to help prevent a learner's overconfidence as they're beginning to take on new roles.
Nice. How long did it take for you to come up with this presentation?
I found the information about a study that had been done. I found that information back in about October, November of last year, actually, and did some study and looked into it. And when the opportunity to put in proposals for DevLearn came up, I decided to speak on that and did some research, did some study, got access to the study itself, and put my proposal in. So from very beginning to presentation, it was about a year.
Have you presented at events before?
This was my first one.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah, I haven't even presented local. I haven't even presented our local ATD chapter yet. So this was, other than just a couple of sessions with 10 people. So this was my first big session, the first big presentation.
Are you another Ohio resident or?
I am not. I am in Iowa actually. So
Nice.
I'm in one of those states that sounds like Ohio, but it's not actually Ohio.
All right, so Bryan, I'm going to hit you up and just ask you some of the same questions that I asked everybody else. But what were your highlights for the event?
Oh, there were a lot of things I didn't get to do as much. I'm in the middle of a big project, and so I wasn't able to participate in the networking, the speed networking, or anything like that. But getting to see a lot of the sessions of people that I respect and I admire. Jonathan's pre-recorded session was phenomenal. I enjoyed it. Cara and James McLucky did an awesome session about the 7 deadly sins of ID. Loved it. Chrissy Tucker, I know she's on here. Her session on building scenarios was a huge boost for me. Helped a ton. I actually was in the middle of a project that I was mentally stuck on with design, and went to Meg Bertapelli's session, and I know Jonathan, you mentioned Tracy Parrish's session, one of her sessions. They were both very, very good. There were a lot of really good sessions this year. There's a part of me that was actually thankful that it was online, because I would have missed out on so many sessions. And with the original schedule, I was actually scheduled to speak at the same time as Meg and at the same time as Jonathan. So I probably would have had like 4 people in my session, which would have been fine. But yeah, I'm really thankful that it moved online, because I was able to see a lot more sessions that I wouldn't have gotten to see otherwise.
That's great. That's great. Have you pretty much gone through everything that you've wanted to see, or are you still kind of like, yeah? No.
So I have an Excel spreadsheet that has the sessions I attended and the sessions I want to attend. And I think the sessions I attended, there's about 7, and the sessions I want to attend, there's about 50 to 55. So there are a lot of sessions that I haven't gotten to watch, and I'm looking forward to. I've got a notebook. My notebook's not out here. I'm taking notes of all my stuff, of all the things that I want to learn, that I'm learning and taking away. And there's a lot of things I'm implementing already into the projects I'm working on. So lots of work to do.
That's great, Bryan. Hey, had you been to a DevLearn in the past?
I did. I attended last year. That's actually where I met Cara. Cara was one of the people I wanted to meet, and I got to meet her and attend her session that she did, and it was an awesome experience. And that was a big reason why I wanted to try to present this year, because it's such a great conference. The Learning Guild does an amazing job with it, Crystal. To your credit and to everyone, it's such a great conference. I really enjoyed it, and I was looking forward to going again this year.
That's great. So as far as your live event experience from last year versus the event this year, can you give us how you feel about the differences?
Yeah, I was really looking forward to going out to Las Vegas. My wife was going to go out with me, so she was really not happy that it got canceled. But I was really looking forward to going this year. I was going to meet Jonathan. We were going to have an adult beverage and hang out for a little bit. So I was disappointed that we didn't get to do that. But at the same time, it did enable me to I think it did honestly enable me to have a bigger audience, which was a lot of fun. People from all over the world, which was really cool. And to be able to see all of the different sessions that are out there now, it's going to be an opportunity where I feel like I'm going to learn so much more, being able to do it online.
Nice. What would you think about the networking piece of it? Is there, did you participate in a lot of that?
I didn't get to, no. A lot of those are in the afternoons when I'm picking my kids up at school. So I didn't get to do much of the networking events and activities. I will say, though, that I've had a lot of people reach out to me on LinkedIn to connect that way, send me messages.
Wow.
Jonathan, I know you're nodding and you're probably in the same boat. And that's been really cool. I still check the chat from my session just to see if there's anybody that's putting messages in there. And I know in the chat on here, there's people who said, "Hey, I'm looking forward to checking out your sessions." So it's a little bit different approach in networking, but it's enabled me to meet a lot of really cool people. Meg has a question for me, Crystal.
I know I just went into your session and she posted she wanted to ask you.
Oh, about the
watching your
live
session.
about the live
somewhat off topic.
Yeah, I actually answered that separately.
Okay.
I connect with her on LinkedIn, so I did catch that. So
Oh,
I didn't answer that on there
good.
though.
Yeah,
That's awesome. All right, cool. Do you think that you're gonna try to present again at DevLearn? Is that something that this is something you're gonna start doing on a regular basis?
I don't know. I know, Cara talks about having done the demo fest and been successful, and that she's retired. And there's a part of me that says I just want to do that. So I want to have it'd have to be a good idea. It'd have to be something that would really enjoy and really invest in. I think the big thing about this session that I did this year is, even if nobody in my session learned a single thing, I learned so much that from just my session alone and all the research and study that I did, that I've implemented into the work that I've done. That's been as valuable to me as anything else. And so that has been the biggest boost for me. That being said, if there's something out there that I could come up with and could do creatively and would help other people be better at their careers, I would absolutely do it. It was a great experience.
Excellent.
A terrifying experience, but it was a great experience.
Hey, Jonathan, so if there was somebody out there that had not, that was trying to, sort of make up their mind about participating in an event like this in the future or even just next year, what would you tell them?
Just to echo, pick up what Bryan was saying there, I think you've got to have a real interest in the thing that you're talking about to sustain the interest and sustain your creativity in building the session. And that will come through in how it presents and how it comes across. The difference between the good and the not so good sessions at DevLearn, I think, maybe boiled down to that. It's about whether the person presenting has the curiosity in the topic and has really interrogated it and knows it well. And the less successful sessions, perhaps people didn't, or perhaps if they've delivered it a few times, they became a bit complacent about it. So for a first timer, I think the advice would be, do something that you know well, and that you will that will sustain your interest to develop it as a piece. Because like Bryan says, sometimes he's 6 months, a year in the making, and after you've gone through all of that process of building your presentation, if it's still interesting to you, it's going to be interesting to your audience, hopefully, unless it's so niche that it's not. And it's about balancing, that interest you have in the topic with it having a wider audience of people that could benefit from it. But the DevLearn proposal form does kind of point you in that direction with the way the questions are laid out in terms of, what's the audience, what's the content, just getting you to think a little bit beyond, this is a little trick that I sort of discovered in Storyline. Where's the application? How will it help others? So combining that interest and curiosity with practical application. If you've got something that fits that grid, and and it's got high interest, high curiosity, high application, then you might be onto a winner. But I would always recommend, just sounding your ideas out with people, in your tribe. So Brian's been very helpful. Brian helped to proofread some of my content before I put it down, as was Cara and Joseph and all that little working out our group. J-Rock too. Just, and each one of these characters will have a slightly different take on what you've shown them and shared with them. And just try and treat that as a microcosm of your audience. There's going to be 100 people in the audience maybe, and where's your outliers? What do you need to do to keep your outliers interested in this topic? And just try and broaden that, that narrow creative focus into something that's got a wider appeal. And I think that's the recipe for me, I think. Because I'm in this situation now, I'm thinking, what am I going to do? If I'm going to do it next year, what am I going to do next year? Mm-hmm. And finding that product that has all of those elements is it's a challenge. It's a challenge, undoubtedly. But once you find it, magic can happen.
You have anything to add to that, Brian, at all?
No, I agree with Jonathan, and I think one of the biggest things is, I think, Jonathan, you mentioned application. For me, the majority of the sessions that I attended last year and the ones that I've done this year that I found the most value out of were the ones where I could immediately go back and say, here's how I'm going to apply it. I did a session last year as Latasha Wooten and on how to create custom multiple choice questions. And it was something I thought I never would have thought about doing that, but that was the very first thing I did when I got back to my desk last year. Was I started creating my own multiple choice questions that were my own look, and I could make them look exactly the way I wanted them to be within my courses, and I still do that. It's going to take me a long time for me to implement what Jay Hill did with the custom AI characters. I've got to do some studying on that. But the sessions that have been the most value for me are the ones where I can say this is how I would apply it. And that was one of the things I really tried to do in my session was, here's how you could take this, here's what it would look like, here's how it would work, here's what we could do. To really make this apply to you and your roles. Those are the ones that had the most valuable to me. Nice.
Okay, like Cara just mentioned, she's saying that I found my work drives my presentations. And yeah, absolutely. That's I think that's the case for most people. So Crystal, I'm going to ask you this and sort of like dovetail a little bit into your learning 2020 responsibilities. But if you were an attendee like that was interested in registering for the DDX experience but wasn't quite sure, like, is there anything that you would tell them to try to convince them, like give them the pitch, like, yeah, you should definitely sign up for this?
Oh geez.
Put you on the spot.
I'm not a marketer by heart. You should have introduced me more of, I just do the websites.
I know.
I make things pretty. Okay. Well, I think it's just a really great way to inspire yourself to go there and just to get away from your work, when we can travel again. And really to get some inspiration to think about what you can put directly back into your work, what you can, do to elevate what you're currently doing. I think I've seen a lot of things where people are like, oh, wow, I didn't realize this could be so easy and it adds such a benefit. I got a lot even out of just hosting Nick Floro, who I see in the audience. His session, he had just so many different tools, and it didn't even just have to apply to e-learning. It was like applicable to even my stuff for doing web design. So I think it's just really cool to meet other people, have that perspective, be outside of your office, because online you can give you something, but actually physically going somewhere and seeing all the people who are super enthusiastic about their work, your work, they take an interest. That's just really, really, cool. And I think that's what you get most out of DevLearn.
Hey, Nick, do you have Nick, if you can hear me, just if you can, let me know if we can pop you into on screen, because I would love to, as a longtime veteran of Learning Guild events, and also you're a guild master too, right? Yeah.
He's a guild master.
If you want to pop Nick in, I'll book out and Nick can pop in.
Yeah. Let me see if Nick is willing to pop in, because I'd love to ask him some questions about it. So Crystal, you have been sort of pitching Learning 2020. Like, I've seen it on LinkedIn. What's the deal with that? It's free registration, right?
It's free registration. It's going to be a 3-day event. We have 30 sessions lined up, 26 regular sessions and 4 general sessions. And it's really targeted towards learning management. What's modern learning leadership going to be like? What's the new normal? How do we adapt to that? How are we going to, move forward from this pandemic when we can move forward, or what have people done? We have some really great speakers. We have the former CLO of McDonald's, Rob Lauber, with us. We have Karen Coker, who's the GM at Microsoft for talent, and just so many great people with us. And it's all free. You guys can just go to learning2020.com and check it out. And we'll be hosting that next week.
Yeah. And so that used to be Elliot Maisie's event. So
yes.
Just not that, I don't know, that may not hold any relevance for you at all, but the one thing I know about Maisie's event was it was more like, I'd heard from people that it was more of almost like it was a show. And it was, and he's like a Broadway producer and stuff, as well as being somebody that really kind of put L&D on the map in a lot of ways, over the last 20 years. But so I'm not sure how much he's involved in helping program it, but I'm sure that it'll kind of maybe follow some of the same trends or some of the same influences that he had in building those events. All right. Well, I'm not seeing Nick say anything to pop in, but I think that so far we've had
Christy was there too. Does Christy want to talk? Am I just picking on people?
Yeah, you're just picking on
Nick's
people.
just
now.
watching.
Oh,
I'm just
yeah,
picking on people. I'm
Nick's
sorry.
just watching. He's not going to come on. But I think that's about it. You guys, do you have anything else to add? Overall, it sounds like, as far as this wrap up is concerned, it was really it was a successful event. Was there an expo at all?
There was an expo. We had expo on 2 days. It was on both Wednesdays. So we let people register for free as an expo only. And the expo sessions were about 30 minutes long instead of 45 minutes. And, we had tabs where you could click on the exhibitors. We actually had a function called Meet Now where you could just click on it and people can hop into basically like a Zoom room with an exhibitor. But, some of that is just really, it's to try to capture the energy of the expo is challenging without those free brownies,
All right, I'm gonna kick Jonathan Hill off screen. Jonathan, thanks so much for coming on. I'll invite Joe Suarez in, even though he didn't say that he wanted to come on, but what the heck, we'll invite him on anyway. We've got a few minutes left here. Were there pre-conference workshops, Crystal?
No, we did not do pre-conference workshops.
No pre. Okay. Interesting.
No.
Did Ron Price do anything? Was like, as far as like vendors and stuff, did any of those guys produce any sessions? How did you guys handle that stuff?
Nick Floro did. Nick Floro was also going to probably be at Learning 2020 too.
Right.
So we had a lot of vendors who produced sessions and share their expertise and what's kind of new with their software and whatnot. I hosted one with the game agency. Yeah, the game agency. And they were just displaying some of their new games that you can create with their characters, customizable and whatnot. So there was a vendor portion there as well.
Okay, that's good. That's good to hear. All right. Well, let's see. I did send an invite to Joe Suarez. Let's see if he pops on. Otherwise, there he is. All right, Joe. Good to see you.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah. So let's hear your highlights.
Oh man. Well, people covered a lot. So something that wasn't covered yet. I liked anything Matt Pierce was in.
Mm-hmm.
And he did a really good recorded session. I thought he really took advantage of the format, the ability to just kind of record things ahead of time and make a production out of it. I thought he did a really good job and had a really good inspiring session for people that want to get into video. So that was that.
Hey, Joe, so how about the amount of recorded sessions versus, live ones? Any idea, like how many of those have you run into, or was it?
So the format was like, there's most of the sessions are live, and then there was a block during the day where people had pre-recorded sessions. They were called on demand. And that's what Cara and I did. Originally, it was going to be a bring your own device session on podcasting. And once things went online, we said, okay, let's pre-record it. That way we can, the analogy I used was like a cooking show. So we're going to ask people to kind of put things together, and then on camera, we'll pretend to put it in the oven and magically pull something out like it had cooked for 40 minutes, as far as like how to record some audio files and put them together and edit them and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. What was that experience like for you, pre-recording something and doing that?
Yeah. I thought it was good. Like Cara and I just kind of hopped on a Zoom call. That was the recommended format. And then we just kind of ran with that. And I would just share my screen and go through Audacity talking about the basic interface and how to do multi-track editing without getting too complex.
Interesting. Hey, Bryan, do you have you watched any of those on-demand recordings? Is that something that you feel like is a good part of the event?
I think it was a good part of the event. Yeah, I've only watched a couple. I watched Jonathan's that day. Betty's session is one that I've got planned to watch. Haven't had a chance to watch it yet. It's one of the top ones on my list. And Betty, I think yours was one of the pre-recorded sessions as well, if I remember correctly. So there's been several sessions that I'm looking forward to going through and watching. It's a little bit different dynamic, but it was nice that we could still communicate in the chat, have those conversations. I know Jonathan was fun because I watched it at the actual specific time, and it was almost kind of like he was live tweeting his session as he went through, and it was good to have those conversations with him while the session was actually happening. And even though I was watching a pre-recorded session, I still felt like it was the live deal. So it was cool to watch that. So
that's really interesting. So, Joe Suarez, were you actually at the event? I mean, did you go to DevLearn last year?
Not last year. I've been 2 years prior, 2013 and 14.
Okay. All right. So how would you compare your experience with the digital experience versus, going to the live one?
I mean, obviously it's not Vegas. It's not the Vegas experience. Of course, the preferred thing for me would be able to see people in person and be able to go hang out, have dinner with folks, and meet folks that I otherwise wouldn't. But, for being an online event, I think they did the best they could, and they tried a lot of different ways to maintain that type of interaction and have basically virtual hallway conversations. So I think for the format that it was pretty good. Yeah.
Would you do it again?
Oh man, you put me on the spot. Yeah. I mean, as long as I'm speaking, I get in free. It's a no-brainer. But for the price, I think it's doable. And as somebody who previously had to convince my employer to pay for registrations, I think having a lower price for an online event is an easier sell. But even if I were out on my own, whatever it was, $250, $300, something like that, that's more feasible for an independent contractor.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. If you were what would you do differently next year if you were to present again?
It would depend if I was doing a live or recorded session. So assuming I would do another recorded session, I think I put a lot more production effort into it. Because I kind of saw it as, okay, we're doing a live session, but we're going to pre-record it. Whereas the ones that really shined, in my opinion, were the people that were like, okay, I get to make a video and I can do whatever I want with that video and have it as my pre-recorded session.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So like I mentioned, Matt Pierce previously, that's what he did, and it really stood out.
Bryan, did you spend much time in the speed networking? No.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. No, I didn't. I didn't do any of the speed networking. Unfortunately, I know my boss was actually attended DevLearn as well, and she did some of the speed networking, and said she met some really. She had some really good connections, and she actually met a lot of people who were newer to the industry. And I thought that was a really good opportunity for her to make those connections as well. She's not as much of a networker as I is. Well, I'm not much of a networker either, but she really isn't. So I thought that was a good way for her to connect with some people who really are new to what we do and get to make those connections.
Have Joe Suarez, did you participate in the speed networking at all?
I did not. I was suffering from that phenomenon Cara was talking about, where you're still working because you're not in Vegas.
Yeah.
And there was actually like a all hands on deck type project that we were rushing out the door the first week. So I was kind of coming in and out as I could, and then watching sessions after the fact.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Just in the working from home environment that we're all living in now, just sort of how DDX became a part of that. And I have seen other events where the networking sort of piece was in place between sessions, and I really wish that I could have seen how this worked for the folks from the guild. It sounded like it went really, really well. All right, you guys. Well, I think that's all I have for today. We were like almost at an hour. Joe Suarez, do you have anything else to add that you want to say about your experience there?
No, I think we covered a lot. It was overall pretty good.
What do you think, Crystal? Does this conversation go well for you as an employee of the Learning Guild? Did everything?
This was great. This was great. Less scary than I thought. Everyone should have seen my text messages to Luis last night. Like, oh my God, what did I sign up to?
I'm like, I'm trying to work, Crystal. All right, you guys. Thanks so much for joining us today. Don't have anything else this week. Next week, this week, I'm just working purely on program for the rest of the month because I have not been getting any email responses from anybody for guesting or doing anything on TLDC. So hopefully I'll start hearing from people this week. I know last week was a crazy week. And Bryan, I'm going to hit you up to see if I can get you on a guest on TLDC. I'm going to see if Crystal can sneak me into a copy of your session so that I can see what this, what all the buzz is about. I'd love to see it. And,
thank you.
Yeah,
I'd be honored. I would be honored to do that. And I'm happy to connect. So feel free to reach out, and I'll see if Cara, do you have his email address, and I can just reach out to him as well? She's got mine. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. But thanks, you guys. Thanks so much for participating. Have a great week. We'll see you next week. I know we have a job description talk with Rubina Halwani and Heidi Kirby next week. That should be a fun one about like just sort of these crazy indecipherable job descriptions that instructional designers are supposed to fill. And of course, more programming ahead. So thanks, everybody. Enjoy your Monday. Bye, everyone.
Bye.